Welcome to session 9 of our 12-session series entitled Write the Vision. We're talking about writing the vision that is in your heart, developing the dream that you aspire to, finding those wise ideas that will bring forth God's provision for your life and the impact that you want to make on this world. We've covered an awful lot of ground. For those of you that have been with us from the very beginning, you know that we've talked about the importance of dreams. We've talked about where dreams come from. We've talked about the power of focus. We've talked about how important it is to master the four critical arts that are important to achieving great change. We talked about the 5 key words that we use to write our vision, and we are working on those 5 words now. Those words being describe, prescribe, inscribe, subscribe, and ascribe. Now, for those of you that have not yet gotten the materials for the sessions, I suggest strongly that you get my new book, Write the Vision. Lots of stories, anecdotes, great information in here that will help you to better work out what is in your heart. It's available in your local bookstore. You can buy it at Amazon.com. You can get it from our website at armoroflight.org. If you want a printed copy like this, or if you would rather have a digital copy, you can get it for iBooks, or you can get it for Kindle or Nook from any of the purveyors of those types of materials. But I suggest that you get this. If you're going to follow along in the training session, you need to have the workbook. You can just get the workbook, because one of the things that we've done to promote this training series is to give away 5 sessions. And some of you picked up in session 6, which was the first of those 5 free sessions. And so maybe now you've heard enough to where you say, well, man, I want the whole thing, and I'd like to have a workbook. And so you can get that from my website, michaelevans.com. And I suggest strongly that you get that, because there's so much information in here that you will want to revisit. We're covering most of it in the training sessions. But like I said, if you only got the 5 free sessions, you're missing 7 other sessions, 5 of which took place before you got in, and 2 of which will take place after you leave. And so you want those materials, you want that information, but it's available in a variety of ways. So today we're picking up in session 9, and we're talking about subscribing to that vision that you have described. You've come up with a prescribed plan of action. It has been inscribed, and now you want to subscribe to it. Now, this is very, very important. To subscribe is to submit yourself to what has been written. Sounds like a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised at how many people have fabulous plans that they have worked out, but they never get busy and work the plan. It's not good enough to have a great idea. It's not good enough to have a great idea, very well articulated, or meticulously written. At the end of the day, you've got to do what is written. You want to go on a diet. Well, that's fantastic. You find that you need a little help with that diet, and so you get one of the 50 million diet books that exist in the world today. You pick one that suits your metabolism, suits your taste, what have you. So all the material is laid out step by step before you. Maybe there are recipes and shopping lists that go along with it, so you can buy the right foods. Maybe on one of these plans like Jenny Craig or Nutrisystem, or there's bunches of them out there where you can actually buy the meals and that sort of thing. And there's all kinds of written literature that goes along with the plan. But at the end of the day, it doesn't do any good to have the world's greatest diet laid out step by step, hanging on your refrigerator door, and you go right by the refrigerator door or through the refrigerator door and eat 15 pieces of pecan pie. You're never going to lose any weight like that. You've got to do what is written. Now, we know that intellectually, but it's one thing to get it in your head. It's another thing to move it from your head to your heart, and from your heart into your actions. And a lot of people have a difficulty getting started and then maintaining that behavior throughout the written program. And one of the reasons for having the written program, we talked about this last time together, was that it serves as a guide and a guardian throughout the process. But you got to be willing to follow the guide. You got to be willing to submit to the guardian. Okay? So what can you do? What can we do to see to it that we fully submit to what is written. And then beyond that, because one of the main reasons for having a written guide was to make it easier for people to help us, make it easier for people to carry on the vision even long after we're gone. And so what can we do to make sure that people not only understand what it is we want to accomplish, that is clear, we've clearly described what it is we want to accomplish, where we want to go, what we want to do. We've come up with a functional and effective prescribed plan of action. We've written it down so it's easy to assimilate, easy to understand. But what can we do to motivate people to actually submit to what is written? Okay, and so we want to talk about subscribing to what is written. And I want to show you something from a book today, and some of this information is in the workbook as well, that will help you when it comes to subscribing. Now I want to start with a simple old second grade elephant joke. You know, how do you eat an elephant? Well, you eat him one bite at a time, right? One bite at a time. And the way to submit to plans, submit to prescribed plans of action, is to get about it in a step-by-step fashion. All right? You've dreamed your dream. You've imagined your future. You've visualized your product. You've articulated what you've seen to some people, and you've written the vision for many others. But transforming that written vision into living results, action, goods, services, may be harder than you think. Okay? So here's an approach that works for me, and I believe it will work for you. And actually what I really mean is it helps me get to work. Okay? So here's what you want to do. Number one, you want to turn your dreams into goals. You want to turn your dreams into goals. It's one thing to kind of imagine this wonderful future, to dream of this glorious product. But you've got to set some goals. Remember, I told you earlier, for those of you who've been in since we began, that you need something that is measurable. Okay? So turn your dreams into goals. You know, people say, oh, I want to travel when I retire. Well, okay, travel is fine, but that's kind of esoteric. Travel where? Where do you want to go? I want to go to Western Europe. Well, that's a pretty big place. Any places in particular you want to go in Western Europe? Oh, yeah, well, I've always wanted to go to London, and I'd love to see Paris. And, you know, I've heard that Rome is nice, and Tuscany. Oh, great. Well, did you ever think about going to Eastern Europe? Budapest is incredible. You might want to check that out as well. And so now we're getting beyond just this kind of broad dream, and we're starting to look at some very specific goals, right? I want to go to Western Europe. I want to go to these cities in Western Europe, and we can narrow that down even further, okay? And so you turn your dreams into goals. And if you're going to submit to this written plan, you know, chances are you've written out some very specific steps, right? Things you need to do. And so now we want to look at these goals, all right? And then you want to translate those goals into plans. So now we're in that planning, that prescribed plan of action stage, right? Okay. But then you want to divide your plans into tasks. All right. So you're breaking this thing down into smaller chunks so that they are manageable. You know, it's one thing to think about what you're going to do, but actually doing it is another thing altogether. And so you need to break this thing down so that it is manageable. Okay. So you want to turn your dreams into goals, your goals into plans, and then your plans into tasks. You know, today I need to do so-and-so. This week I need to do such and such. I need to get this done by the end of the month. Okay. All right. But since we tend to be creatures of habit, you want to turn those tasks into steps. All right. Step by step. This is how I'm going to accomplish this task. And this task by task, is going to get me to this goal, which is going to ultimately help me realize my dream. All right? And so you turn tasks into steps, or reduce your tasks into steps. And then you want to rehearse those steps, listen, until they become habits. Now, this is critical. And I actually just finished reading a really interesting book about habits, and, you know, how people make them, what we can do to either break or change them. And there were some interesting, kind of very simple but very powerful formulas relative to how habits come into being, what keeps us going in them, and what's necessary to change them. And the author talked about cues, things that kind of trigger our behaviors. A certain time of day, a certain set of behaviors, a certain social group that we get around, a certain set of feelings trigger a behavior, whether it's smoking a cigarette or having a drink or going running or exercising, or because habits can be good or bad. All right. And so there's a trigger or a cue that makes you begin the activity that we know is the habit, but we continue to do the habit because there's a reward on the other end. I'm going to get paid for this, or somebody's going to like me and praise me as a result of this, or I'm going to get a certain feeling as a result of doing this particular thing, right? But he said, if that's not enough, because if you really want this thing to stick, if you want to do it, it's got to get to the point where there is a craving that is created in association with that habit. You got to really want to do this. And if you're already in a set of patterns or habits that are either inconsistent with or worse, contradictory to what it is you're trying to accomplish, then you got to find a way to change that. And most people, desire is not enough. Literature is not enough. I mean, how much literature has been written about the perils of smoking cigarettes, but people are lighting up, new customers are signing up every day. People go to the doctor's office and see what's wrong with their lungs or other parts of their body as a function of smoking, but that information doesn't change the behavior. There are only three things that change behavior, only three things. Number one is law. And my dad used to say laws and locks are for honest people, but there are certain body populace that is responsive to law. Now, law provided certain stimuluses around the speed limit. I drive the speed limit when I see the police. If I don't see the police, I tend to cheat a little bit, and that's the way most people I know drive. But I do have enough respect for the law. I do have enough fear of speeding tickets or being jailed that I don't drive drunk. I don't get drunk, but even when I did, I try not to drive drunk. And when I see the police, I honor his presence and back it down. Law tends to curtail or affect my behavior, but it's temporary. It's temporary. Laws, depending on the negative aspects of breaking certain laws, or if you find that people are lenient or don't enforce certain laws, you tend to break them. All right. So number two is crisis. Now this tends to be a big one for people. You kind of eating willy-nilly in any way and not paying attention to your diet, and all of a sudden you start to have heart problems or breathing problems or other things begin to occur. You go in for that annual physical or whatever, and the doctor says, look, if you don't stop doing so-and-so, that feeling that you're having, that sensation is going to develop into a heart attack or a stroke or something. And that crisis alarms you to change. And sometimes that change will last. If you can get into the right rhythms on the back end of the change, you can break a habit. This book that I was reading about habits talked about certain crises that people go through where they change their shopping patterns when couples get pregnant, or when a spouse dies, or after a divorce or a new job, something like that. When there's a form of cataclysm in a life, there's an opportunity to adjust habitual patterns. So that's a good time to kind of stick that new plan, that new prescribed plan of action in, and really get yourself into a new set of rhythms. Take that goal. There was one lady, I think her husband left her. She had gotten overweight, maybe before or after the divorce. Some things were going on with her job. Or maybe she got fired or something, and she started smoking, and she was just, her life was kind of on a downward spiral. And so she was really deep into debt, but she had some room on a credit card, and she had always wanted to go to Egypt, I think it was. And so she takes this trip to Egypt, and she's kind of feeling bad and sleeping late, and this, life is kind of in peril, and what am I going to do? And I don't like my life, and so forth and so on. And she's riding in a taxi cab, I think, and she decides that she wants to hike across the desert. She's looking at the pyramids and all that stuff. She wants to hike across the desert. And that one decision in the midst of all this crisis, suddenly she's got this goal, right? But now she knows in order to achieve that goal, she's out of shape. So she's got to get in shape. She's not going to do it while she's there. She's got to come back. So she's got to make plans to travel back to the Middle East. She's got to get in shape over a period of time, so forth and so on. But in the process, that one kind of cataclysm and that goal in the midst of that cataclysm, it begins to propagate a series of things. She starts walking. She quits smoking. She gets a job. She hadn't held a job for any length of time for years. And now all of a sudden she gets one, she holds it down. She loses the weight. She gets into a relationship. She goes back to the desert. She doesn't actually hike across it, but she goes. But what I'm saying is that crisis creates an opportunity for a craving. She really wants to do something. And so crisis is a good opportunity for change. Now, I hope you don't go through any major cataclysm or crisis, but history has proven, experience has proven that a lot of times people who even really want to change just can't seem to find the get to it, to do it, until something knocks them out of their rut. Okay. The third reason, and this tends to be the most lasting effect that causes change, is love. Deep desire. Love for someone else, love for yourself. I want to do this for my children. I want to do this for my community, to get outside of yourself and really have a deep affinity for some great cause, is usually when most people make great change and stick to it. And so that goal is out there. Those goals get reduced down to plans, those plans into tasks, those tasks into steps, those steps. Now, that love, that desire, that law, that Christ, whatever, triggers a new set of behaviors, right? And if you can maintain them, find the reward on the other side, helping other people, your life getting better, your health, your family, your sex life. You'd be surprised at the things that are enough of a trigger to get people to change, right? The reward on the other end, and then that deep desire, which in many cases is caused by a cataclysm or a crisis, that creates craving that says, I gotta do this now, right? And all of a sudden you find yourself completely submitted to a set of rigors that will take you to your dream. And so here we are once again. We have described this great future. Maybe it was a crisis that draw you wanting a new goal, like the lady in the desert, right? But all of a sudden you're saying, look, I've been putting this off long enough. I've always said I wanted to be in a band. I've always said I wanted to write a play or write a novel. I've always said I wanted to go back to college, finish my degree. I've always said, I want to do this, I want to do that. But now's the time. The economy's in a slump. My job is either terrible or non-existent. Got some time on my hands. It's time for me to clarify this dream. I've kind of been talking about it in esoteric terms at cocktail parties for the last 15 years. But now it's time to get real about this thing. So what exactly is it I want to do? And I clearly describe it. And somebody says, well, wow, that's interesting. Tell me more. How do you plan to do this? And so I come up with a prescribed plan of action. Maybe I can talk them through it, but I realize that that's not enough, because now maybe somebody wants to help me. Maybe somebody wants to support my project. They want details. They want specifics. So now I have to sit down and physically inscribe, which makes a demand on my thinking process. I've got to get out the details. How long is it going to take? When am I going to start? Where exactly am I going to go? What are the specifics? And now I realize that this thing is out there. It's bearing on me. Other people are asking about it. Maybe I'm at that point of cataclysm or crisis, law or love, right? That's making this demand. And now I've got to choose to submit to what I've written. I've got to subscribe. And if other people are going to help me, if other people are going to be partakers of this effort, I've got to find a way to motivate them as well. Earlier in the teaching, I talk about this radio station that everybody's listening to in the world, WIIIFM. What is in it for me? And I strongly suggested that when you're describing what it is you want to do, that a part of your descriptor should not just be to get what's in you out, but to tie into what the needs and desires, the motivators in other people are, so that you describe it to them in a way that interests them for them. Not just so they'll help you, because more often than not, even when people desire to help us, there is this reciprocation. People can talk benevolence and say, oh, I don't want anything back, but we all want something. I want to get paid in cash. We may not want stock options, but we do want to be acknowledged. We want to be admired. We want to feel good. We want something in return. We need something in return. And so when I'm trying to describe what I want to do to you, if I expect any help, if I expect any buy-in, it's wise to describe it in a way that meets that need, that speaks to what the helper might desire. And once I get further down the road and I've described it, I've got a prescribed plan of action, I've inscribed it, written it, and I'm writing it in a way now where whoever reads it can see that buy-in, and it speaks to them so that they too will subscribe to what is written. If it's a sales pitch, if it's a sales plan, where are the bonuses? Where are the levels of increase that induce me to want to buy more or sell more? Okay? What's in it for me? What's going to cause me to subscribe? And remember, there's only really three things that move people. You can talk about money all you want to, but law, crisis, and love tend to be the greatest motivators in the world. Okay? And so we can think that through for our own uses, our own purposes, but also for the purpose of those who will hopefully ultimately come to help us to realize this vision or dream. Now what we have is not just kind of a static piece of paper sitting in front of us that never gets moved on, a recipe that never gets cooked, a plan that never gets acted on, a schematic that never gets built. But we got something that moves people, something that causes people to want to make the sacrifices, want to make the investment, want to forward the fears that are before them in order to accomplish this goal. And so we're 80% into this thing. You've described it. This is what it is. This is what it looks like. This is where I want to go. You got a prescribed plan of action. This is how I plan to get there, because I know where I want to go. I know where I am. I know what I have. I know what I need, so forth and so on. It's inscribed. I've taken the time to kind of dig in there and answer all the questions. And I've got a written plan of action, right? And now I'm finding the motivators to subscribe to what I have inscribed, not just for me, but for the other people that will read this vision. Remember when we started in Habakkuk chapter 2, write the vision that he may run that readeth it? Well, what is it going to call him to run in that written record? What is it in that written description, that written prescribed plan of action that's going to cause him to run, to make him subscribe, submit to what is written? If you can find that, if you can tap into that and turn that dream into goals, that goal into task, those tasks into steps, and then those steps, right, into habits where people are doing the things that need to be done way beyond thinking about them, way beyond thinking that something is moving them consistently to submit to what is written. You'll be that much closer to realizing your dream. Once again, I encourage you to get a copy of Write the Vision. What I talked about today is right here in this book in very clear detail, and it will help you to do what we've talked about. If you're going to follow through on the sessions, if you don't already have it, get this workbook. There's stuff in the workbook that's not in the book. There's stuff in the book that's not in the workbook. You need them both. And we've priced them so that that is not a difficult thing to do. For those of you that are just being partakers of the 5 free sessions, hey, there's enough information in here to get you started. But I encourage you strongly to go on and opt in for the whole 12 training sessions, because there's so much more. And I'm telling you, man, it'll help you get where you want to go. And you might want to come and visit us at one of our live events. Go to our website, michaelevans.com, and it'll keep you posted on where we're going from time to time. And it'll be a real blessing to you to be in those. But at the end of the day, what we want you to do is write your vision. Next time, we're going to talk about ascribing to what you're described, prescribed, inscribed, and subscribed to as we carry on, helping you to write your vision.